ASMR. I'm going to be bringing you a story about two people who got married quick, fell in love, and planned on being famous, only to never be seen again. I like to say hello to everybody who listens to this. I'm going to be bringing as many amazing stories as I possibly can. Don't let the mask scare you. I don't bite. I'm going to be telling you a story about a person named Glen and a person named Bessie, Hyde. These two people were last seen on November 18th, 1928. And the last time they made what's called a diary entry was on November 30th, 1928. They basically met on a passenger ship traveling to Los Angeles in 1927. And in April of 1928, they were married. They truly clicked immediately. Before they had met, Glen had built a 20-foot-long wooden scow boat, and he had already made some trips through Idaho and some things, and he loved the boat, and he loved to ride rapids, whereas, Bessie had little experience riding these rapids, but she loved to go on adventures, and Glen wanted to break the speed record for how long it would take to travel through the Grand Canyon and come out the other end, and he thought that they could do it in 45 days. And he had asked Bessie to go on the journey with him, so that way she could be the first woman to do it. And they were madly in love and married, so they're like, why not? I mean, you'd want to spend a month and a half with your new love, and you would want to have adventures, and if it's something that you wanted to do, why would you not do it? So Bessie was 22. She was an inspired poet. She was an artist. And bottom line, she loved her husband at the time. So, yes, she agreed to this. Even though she was not an experienced boater or experienced on rapids, she felt like with her husband she could finish this journey. So that's where it begins. So, starting on the date of October 20th, 1928, they basically started their adventure in the city of Green River in Utah, and they made a very successful run through these major rapids of the Green and Colorado River. So, they were very happy to get through there. They estimated their entire trip to be about a month and a half. And when they got to the Grand Canyon Village on the south rim, it was around November 16th. So we're looking at 26 days into the journey. They had reached this area, and this is where they restocked some of their supplies for the final leg of their adventure. And when they were there, they had talked to a reporter from the Denver Post, basically told him that they were going to be finishing up their trip, and that their final destination was Needles, the city of Needles in California, and they were only a few weeks from getting there. So they were very happy to have gotten through almost the first month of the journey. When they were at this destination, they took a walk along what was called the Bright Angel Trail, and this is where they met the brothers Ellsworth and Emery Kolb. They were very famous photographers. cameras at the time, and they ran a cliffside studio by the canyon. And Glen and Bessie went to this studio, and they introduced themselves, and they explained to these people that they were on their honeymoon, and they had been rafting on this river for 26 days, and they had asked to have their photo taken on the rim. And they had said, we'll, come back and get it when we're done. I mean, typical honeymoon, adventure. Let's take a boat for a month. I mean, what couple doesn't do this? Duh. And, they get their picture because, you want a memory, and they didn't want to take the picture with them because they didn't want it to get ruined, and it gave them a reason to come back and let the brothers know that they had finished their journey. While they were talking to these brothers, Emery Cobb had said that Glen didn't have life preservers, and neither did Bessie, and he asked them and talked to them about it and offered to give them life preservers because the last leg of the trip, why not be protected? There's no reason to die because you're not protected. So he thought it would be best if they had them, and basically Glen said no, we didn't need it, and Glen and Bessie said they could swim through anything. I have to say, I don't care how strong you are, how good of a swimmer you are, I don't really care. The bottom line is, it doesn't matter if you get caught in a rapid. The pressure of the water and the current is bigger, stronger, and more badass than your swimming ability. And if you fall and hit your head, guess what? You are gonna sink. You're gonna drown. You're gonna have what's called going unconscious happen, and the river is going to take your life. So, maybe a little bit of common sense would have been nice to say wearing a life preserver was more important than your ego. But apparently, even back in 1928, and currently today, our ego is way too fucking smart for our brain. So, let that be a lesson. Don't let your ego get your ass killed. Sounds like a plan, huh? So, as they were leaving, they recalled the daughter of Emery Kolb walking up to Bessie and Glen, and Bessie had looked over at the daughter and noticed her high heel shoes she was wearing, and there are reports that she made a comment, I wonder if I will ever wear those kind of shoes again, with a very strange look on her face. After people were interviewed and talked to, everybody said that Bessie had this look in her eye of like, I want the trip to end. I don't want to go any further. She didn't say anything, but people got this idea that something wasn't right. Whether it was, an argument between the couple, whether she was scared, whether they could finish the trip. Nobody really knows, but they definitely sensed a negative vibe from Bessie about what they were about to do over the last few weeks of the trip. So, when they were getting ready to continue journey. They had met a man named Adolf, and Gisotro was his name, I believe, and he was also a photographer, and he took pictures with them and even got on the boat and rode on the boat for a short period of time. After this last stop, this man Adolf would have been the very last person to see these two lovebirds alive. So, what had happened was by early December, when they should have already been back home, they had not been heard from. They had not been seen, and they didn't arrive at their destination. So Emery Kolb initiated a search of the area, which included a very small plane that he flew through the canyon at a very low range down the river to try to find these lovebirds. And on December 20th, about 15 miles south of Diamond Creek, they found the boat sitting there stuck to some rocks. And the assumption was that they must be waiting somewhere on a ledge, stranded, for the last 21 days. They had stopped to camp and their boat, went down the river and they were stuck. So they decided they were going to search the area and see if they could find them anywhere, camping, hiking, asking for help, trying to survive until someone found them. No one knew. Not long after that, the rescuers made a journey and reached the boat that the airplane had found. And when they got to this boat, they had found food, clothing, books, and they found Betsy's journal, as well as a camera, which there revealed the final photo to have been taken. This photo was taken near the river mile 165, and they believe it was taken around November 27th. Bummer. The last entry in her journal was written down on November 30th, and it said it was written near Diamond Creek. So Glen's father, who was at the age 70 years old at the time, his name was Hyde, had hired a group of men to search the canyon all around the area of Diamond Creek, anywhere that they could think this couple may have gone. And he sent them in every direction, all around. He did everything he could, and he spent 41 days with him and his crew looking for these people, and he never found them. Like, where did they go? He didn't know. They didn't have a clue. They didn't have evidence. They didn't have anything. So it was very mysterious how they made it through this whole first stretch, and then bam, they were gone. I mean, if the boat overturned, if they had hit rocks, the boat would have been damaged, and none of this happened. The boat was fine, intact. They had all their stuff. They didn't find blood. They didn't find anything in the boat that looked disturbing. Just an empty boat and nobody's body. So that's very, very mysterious, very creepy, and you gotta wonder, why and how and what happened. A lot of people just were very shocked and confused by the disappearance of these two people. So, many people talked about this story. You have people that say the obvious thing of, well, they probably hit a rock and they fell over. They didn't have life preservers, and it was very easy to drown. The river probably swept them down, and they could have been anywhere. And by the time people looked, I mean, they could have been way further than the search parties were looking. So, you have those people. You have other people that thought, well, Bessie didn't want to continue. There is a problem. And maybe Glen had forced her to go on the trip originally. Maybe just forced her to go on the second part after they stopped. She didn't want to. So there was the argument that maybe, Glen got sick of Bessie and maybe he murdered her and then tried to disappear. Other people thought the exact opposite, that maybe Bessie murdered Glen and she disappeared, not wanting to get caught or, in trouble, and maybe she just went on with her life. But, maybe something like that happened where, they just wanted to get away, and then not finish the journey, at least one of them. So later on, there was friends of this woman. Her name was George Clark, and they claimed that George Clark was actually Bessie Hyde, and they claimed this. She had lots of rafting experience on the Grand Canyon over the years following this event, and after she had died in 1992 at an older age, they got to go through her personal belongings. Okay, and while going through her personal belongings, they actually ran into this George Clark's birth certificate, and her birth certificate actually said on it that her name was Bessie DeRoss, which is crazy, and she rafted. People they just believed it. Like, she changed her identity and she changed her name, and she got away with whatever happened, and this was her. So people asked, well, why do you have a different name of, Clark, or even White was one of her other names? And they said those were the last names due to two ex-husbands of her friends. Curiosity got even higher when they had found the marriage license of Glen and Bessie Hyde in her home. Strange, right? And they also found a pistol in her lingerie drawer. And an historian of the Colorado River wrote a book called Sunk Without a Sound. It was called The Tragic Colorado River Honeymoon of Glen and Bessie Hyde. And in this book, it investigated the couple's story and all the theories of the examined items from Clark's home. And it had concluded from the photographs of this Clark and Bessie that they didn't even look the same. They had to be different people, and they basically came up with the conclusion that she held souvenirs, that she was somebody who went down the river and knew the story, and was, we'll say, fascinated with the disappearance and the true crime of, this story. So she kept these souvenirs, and she actually wasn't, as far as anybody knows, Bessie Hyde. There was also another event in 1971. It was on a commercial boat trip, and there was a female, an elderly woman named Liz Cutler, and they were sitting down at a bonfire, and she told everybody around the bonfire that her real name was Bessie Hyde. And then people were like, what? I mean, the first thing you'd ask is, well, if you were Bessie Hyde, then what in the hell happened to your husband, Glen? Where did he go? specifically, there was a boatsman by the name of George Billingsley that asked her this question. And without hesitation, she said, "I killed him." She never looked him in the eyes. She kept looking down. It's like she didn't want to look at him either, because she was lying, or she couldn't look at anybody when she spoke the truth. So it's hard to tell. So, she told the people at the fire that they had gotten into a fight, and that she had stabbed Glen, and then she had hiked out to Peach Springs, Arizona, which where she caught a bus and headed east away from the area. And after these allegations came out and this evidence, investigators took charge, trying to connect this woman with the things that had happened. And again, the link between the woman disappearing and her identity was botched. They said, hell no. I mean, this woman, Liz Cutler, was actually a psychology professor from Ohio, and they believed that she was the kind of person that liked to play mind tricks, and she knew she could get people's, minds going, and she could intrigue the idea. And she was like, I'm gonna tell people I'm Bessie. Maybe she wanted to be famous. Maybe she wanted to just tell a story. And that's what she did. So they said, nope, that's not her. You're not her. We don't buy it. Moving on. Another crazy turn to this story was that in 1976, there was a skeleton of a man found at the property of Emery Kolb. Now remember, Emery Kolb was the area and photographer, that they had stopped and seen, had the picture taken before they left on their second link, or their second part of their journey, And in Emery's garage is where they found this body. So right away, you had people, these people thinking, holy shit, maybe they never got back on the boat and he killed them. I mean, you gotta check it out. So they analyzed the bones and all the evidence, and they came to the conclusion that the bones were way too young to have been, Glen, and determined that it was a manual labor that he had. Don't ask me why the guy had a dead person in his garage, and if he went to jail, because I didn't even check that shit out. I mean, the bottom line is, if he killed them, who else did he kill? If somebody died in his garage and he never knew he was there, then I'm still asking the question, what the hell happened? I mean, it's not every day somebody dies in your garage, sits there until he's a fucking skeleton, and you just don't know he's there. So, this guy, what the hell? He could have killed him. Let's be honest. He could have, put their body somewhere. You just don't know. We'll never know, because we just aren't gonna. So, basically, Glen and Bessie just disappeared. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows how. Nobody knows at all. There are no evidence. They just have the evidence of the last time they had a fire, and the last place that they stopped that boat, the last place they restocked, the last people they talked to, and the last people who got this negative vibe from Bessie. And the last area of the mile 232 was about 45 miles away from the end of the Grand Canyon, so they were very close to the end of their trip, and something tragic happened, and unfortunately, nobody's gonna know. Not you, not me, not anybody in their family. And it's a tragedy for someone to disappear because then nobody has closure. That was somebody's child, maybe somebody's mother or father. It wasn't in this case, but with many other people that disappear is my point. It could have been. And my heart goes out for everybody out there that, knows somebody who's disappeared or knows somebody who has known somebody to disappear. And it just sucks. And, I am sorry. So I hope you enjoyed this first story by Freddy Krueger. And I hope you subscribe and tune into my next video, as I'll have one soon. And I am going to tell you in a future video all about me and how I got this face and how I did this to my head and where I came from and where my name came from. And I'm going to tell you about some other people that maybe also got burned. And I hope that you stay tuned for that. I hope you leave me a message by typing on your computer and letting me know what you think about this channel. I will be seeing you very soon. So hit the subscribe button on Krueger True Crime ASMR. Leave me that comment, bad or good. It doesn't matter. But be careful if it's bad. And I will see you soon. Good night. Sleep well. And if you sleep too well, I may see you even sooner. Bye-bye.